Music never dies. Music awaits the next servant who will bring her alive again. It's a sobering fact when you age, having served the muse, that the music you discovered, eventually even that you wrote, in this case, remains eternally young when you decay because of the passing of time. It's almost as if there is no passing and no future, an eternal rediscovered present, which in the presence of students is a beautiful allegory of the permanence of the enmarvelment in front of the pieces, which touch differently or in their own way, sometimes similarly, the younger generations who are touched by this eternal message. And we all have in music memories of young years or child years, discovering pieces which are companions for a life, as a performer, as a teacher, as a analyst, possibly as a thinker of music, not only a doer of music. And regardless, it's like a river that flows with your life. And sometimes you rediscover it with a new point of view, saying, oh, I didn't see that in it. Such other dimension, or sometimes it just comes back to you like it used to be, and you rediscover it. So you play it, you hear it, you think it, you conduct it, you eventually transcribe it, you whatever you do with it, it's mostly what it does to you. And I find it so humbling and inspirational when I discover what it means to a student, what it means to one's own child. On the very short passage on earth, the eternity of a message seems to be so daily present and meaningful, even if forgotten. Sometimes some composers get to be forgotten by history and some of their works. Sometimes the works survive the fame of the composer, sometimes the opposite. But beyond these things on the surface, the essence remains, is that the music doesn't age. And when you accumulate time periods that you can discover when you have the luxury to study them with access to centuries of scores, regardless of everybody's agreement or not of the original authenticity of how we approach it compared to time passing. But in a way, they were not meant to be beyond their time. They were music for their time by their contemporaries. And because they're timeless, they are our contemporaries as we tackle them, as we play them, as we love them, as we cherish them, as we teach them. And we have beliefs and we have disagreements, how it's supposed to or not, the tempo, the phrasing, the articulation, the style doesn't do that, and this shouldn't be this way, and shouldn't be played that way on this instrument, but even if it was, then the pedaling doesn't fit. You can go into all the details, but ultimately, philosophically, I come to discover that music remains eternally young. It doesn't die, even if it's forgotten. It just waits to be rediscovered by somebody who will find it meaningful to them, um, or to her or him individually. It's as if there is a mirrored response of the soul recognizing something in which, while not made for them or in their time period, responds to some inner yearning. The Romantic era of Western Europe was based in the early 19th century, towards the middle mainly, and also very end. They couldn't get away from this longing, expecting, hoping for love, for fame, for recognition, for fortune, for I don't know what actually, but longing. And no matter what, in the process of the longing, am I loved? Am I admitted? Am I? It becomes very interesting how poems and music pieces and sculptures and works of art symbolizing the human condition's finitude, um, not searching directly immortality through the art form, but perhaps for sure an elevation, morphing at another dimension, which is given to the humans on earth to experience for a few minutes of their life, to touch something essential. You can call it a destiny, a purpose, a meaning. People try to find meaning to it because it's frightening philosophically if it was meaningless. But beyond that, I find that music is a good companion of life because it maintains you humble in front of it. You never own a work, even if you mastered it at your best and you're the recognized best performer of it. And then another person comes in another time and becomes the like an actor embodying a character, and then another actor comes and embodies the same character and gives it their own dimension, and individually they become, for their time periods, the expression of that truth of it. Of course, truth is not the right word since it's all fiction, mythologically told. Well, it's obvious since myth by essence is to tell something that you make up, but you you go through life, and music is the ramp to which you hold, and you find that, and I find it very sweet, almost bittersweet. When I was a child, to watch old people play the piano, I thought, by some very childish reason, of course, that is only the thought process of a toddler, that music is to be done by young people since that's when we discover it. If most of us are obliged to do it when they're children against their will because it's the acquired taste that the parents hope the child gets from this or from judo or ballet or from any other activity other than the intellectual. But it's partly intellectual, but it's partly physical, like sports, like any kind of exercise of discipline of the soul. organizing it into some kind of a inner thriving search towards a goal that is unattainable, but nevertheless organized as such. And because it started often to please instead of meaning, since parents impose, um, then nevertheless this piece of music remains meaningful later when you rediscover it in your profession or not in music. But it is like a poem you read, like a novel you read, like a film you saw, like a theater play that shook you because of the mirror of the soul and the recognition of the elements of humanity that are there. Or you read the Odysseus and you see that mythical storytelling, the rhapsode who used to tell them in ancient Greece and onward, are necessary statements, just like children when they want to go to bed, which they don't, are told stories in order to go to bed because they want to be told a story. And ultimately, a piece of music, with lyrics or not, is a storytelling through sounds and pitches and rhythms and pulses, which all impact psychologically the emotion or the imagination of the person. It's a gesture of an interval, it's an adjective, a specific one more than another one. It's its own translation. It's not a universal language, which I think it's a little bit easy to say because you have to really learn the grammar in order to taste like you do when you want to learn a poem in a language you don't speak, other than the music of the words, but onomatopoeias, just sounds that sound, but they don't translate the meaning, the phonemes, and then you put the meaning, and when you hear the meaning, you don't hear the music of the words as much because you follow the meaning. That's the process of the thought. Same thing analytically when you go to a fugue in music or any kind of post-tonal dodecaphonic music, you see the organization of the alphabet, of the syntax that is rethought by composers who want to rethink it. And that is a very healthy intellectual situation. But in terms of the storytelling of something that is there to make you daydream, escape, and eventually make you fall asleep, is because that's what children like, to be told stories. And I think that to a certain extent, even if you know the story and you buy a purchase, for instance, a ticket to hear a performer recite it, play it, imagine it, or restate it for you, you want to be again going through that story, even if you know how it ends. But the way it's told makes you enjoy it more, believe it more, and say, oh, I prefer this actor, I prefer this interpreter. But in fact, you make it into in your mind, in your soul, when you read it by yourself. You don't need to be told how it's supposed to be embodied. But sometimes humans like and need, we all need visualizing or hearing it appear in reality, not only in theory. You don't just consume a music score by reading it. You consume it by hearing it as well as playing it or sharing it and teaching it and meaning it. But all that doesn't bring away from the fact that with age you realize that on one side there is the lottery of DNA, and you see how some people depart this world earlier, too early, before they have said what they had to say in their art form or in their philosophy or in their thought or in their livelihood. And then you are thankful that you have had the chance to age enough to see your children grow, your students blossom, to see that some of your efforts produced some meaningful effects without any search for an equal sign in between, because in fact it's not. It's all about yearning for this ideal that is the service to the muse. These reflections are not only or sound like, most likely, as nostalgic and reflecting the time passing, which is sort of an obvious fact to all humans, so nothing new here. But I must say that while people are forgotten, for good or bad reasons, as they say, cemeteries are filled with indispensable people, the humility keeps us from being in the situation where between the necessary self-esteem and the necessary humility, we find that balance where society considers that we are balanced. But in fact, there is no balance. There are only moments of intensity that you live either through love, through discovery of humans, of books, of stories, of eras, of niches in time. In other words, you don't know very well why, but it means to you enough to try to find the means to spend the time into it. And life is expensive and difficult and demanding, and responsibilities are very important. It's not all about oneself, it's all about the others. And in my case, when I was a child prodigy, Mademoiselle Boulanger told me that I have to use the talent I was given to the others all my life long. That was my mission. I didn't feel very comfortable about it because I was not even 7 or 8 when she told me that. But it felt like a statement that I had to take very at heart. And in a way, you can very well turn your back to such predicaments and you can say, it doesn't matter, it's all about me. No, it's all about you. Perhaps it's through the mirror, but not in return, more in giving without return. That's what I meant to say. The selfless love is the real love. And in a way, when I make humor, when I tell the students that composers talk back to me when I ask them questions, how am I supposed to teach your unplayable section of a piece? You know, all who are in music know that. I'm sort of the hyphen between the dead composer's intent with the notation of the score and the student wondering or coming with a solution and me trying to find a better, or if not alternative, at least complementary. And pushing that further, they go to other teachers and so on and so forth. So they build their own structure of knowledge, of understanding, and how they manage it, or how they give it up, or how they pursue, or how they understand that it takes so many revisitations until you reach a certain point where you find some kind of osmosis with the text that intrigues you, charms you, amazes you, baffles you, tests you, scares you, because you don't want to mess it up, but at the same time, it's made to make you progress towards yourself through the text of this composer's notations, reflecting their obviously intent, which outside of the context of their time period. Today we study so many time periods in compared to the past when they mostly serve their own times, music. Today we can record it, print it, in fact, keep it and accumulate it. And then, unlike science, Bach is not erased by Mozart, who is not erased by Schumann, who is not erased by um, Brahms and who is not erased, etc. In other words, they accumulate. And Rachmaninoff, we don't know if it's a romantic or a modern. And when we try to classify them for repertoire's sake, jury auditions, exams, is Schubert a romantic or a classic? Some are ahead of their time. Brahms is perhaps behind his time, but they're timeless. Their oeuvre is timeless. Their work is timeless. They tell us things that mean to us so much, to our souls, to our neighbors, to our students, to our audience members when we perform them. It's like love. It's always restarted. It's always anew. It's always meaningful with that romantic era representation in art form um, for music of longing and hoping. Even if today with text messages the longing and the hoping is shorter than a pigeon with a love poem on its well, anyway, I digress as usual because my thoughts go into an arborescence of branches in all directions. But mainly, it is the importance of the awareness how much we need to cherish the present moment, because in a certain way the future hasn't happened and it's feared or hoped. The past is regretted or forgotten or objectively appreciated. But it's not a book with turning pages, because then the thin page of the present seems to be a sandwich between that future that could be a forgetfulness or that past that could be also forgotten. And so if we have this 5-minute memory of a red fish in a bowl, in a way it's bliss, because everything is rediscovered every day. The joy of animal domesticated who is so happy to see you because you feed him or her, and because they sense your love, because they have their own soul, and this soul connects to you. So you exchange with your animal, you exchange with the others, which is all of us, atoms in this universe, combined one way or the other. And then we have these messages that are given to us by a poet, a writer, a sculptor, a painter, a filmmaker, a video game conceptor, a composer, a performer, and sometimes both, sometimes separately. Regardless, at the end, what matters the most is the fact that the message prevails and means something anew to the next people who will discover it, either in affiliation through the studies, either in a rediscovery out of oblivion because it was forgotten, which in my case was the rediscovery of the music of Gabriel Dupont. His own publisher didn't find the plaques of the original prints because world wars and family disappearance, and then no kin, and then, in fact, we are the children of the music we play indirectly, or at least the elected family of the Bach Society, the Liszt Society, the Chopin Society. I like to joke about all this because I find it fanatically strange that the most famous composers need competitions on their names, and friends of and foundations that remember their name, like Albeniz and others. Ideally, there should be one for each of the forgotten composers too, but, well, such is life until it's treasured without a foundation, without a structural organization that values it and places it on a hierarchy in the world of art. by being essential or secondary, or they're forgotten or grouped by group of artists, as we go through the history of music as if it's some kind of bus with many stops of sort of analogy, is that it's valuable treasure to each of us who rediscovers it for themselves. And I would love to be the fact that it could be for the wrong reasons, with the wrong meaning. Perhaps we totally misunderstand that ancient tablet we try to decipher from a language that is long gone, and perhaps we misguess. Or perhaps we inject or impose in it what, yeah, we self-serve ourselves in the art. And so what if we self-serve ourselves in the art? At least we do it with love, respect, and perhaps sometimes disrespect, in the sense of teasing what you love, because you feel so comfortable in the sense of familiarly belonging to the music world of Fauré, or the music world of Albéniz, or the music world of... And of course, you can study the life if you can, and you should, if there are enough books about it. So then you make this full circle and say, okay, I know more than I should have known about the composer's life's personal human flaws, that is easy to criticize in distance, because that was in the scheme of the events of their life. But they produced, almost besides themselves, not really, but that's what we call inspiration, or perhaps escapism, or what you can call it what you want, something that doesn't get justified by their life. In a way, it's parallel, or in a way, it is theirs as an intellectual property. But what it means to us on the moment we appropriate it for ourselves, you recite it, but you didn't compose it. You rent a film which you didn't make. You rent a video game which you didn't conceive. But you become so involved in the storytelling of an opera which you didn't write, in a film which you were not part of it, but it becomes part of your life, at least the storytelling of it, the yearning that drives you to be more curious about it, and eventually more about the culture and the language and the time period, and you can, and you should. That is what makes humans so beautifully curious, to go to other planets, to the bottom of the seas, to the center of our souls, beyond all the hiding. That's why music doesn't die. It only awaits the next person for whom it will be meaningful in their life.